Ever wanted to make a delicious chocolate cake in just 10 minutes? Today we're doing just that. We're going to explore a simple yet delightful recipe for a basic chocolate cake. A recipe so quick and easy it's perfect for a last-minute dessert or surprise celebration. We'll guide you through each step, ensuring you can recreate this tasty treat in your own kitchen. So, if you're ready to become a master baker in just 10 minutes, keep watching. Before we start, let's gather all our ingredients. For this delicious basic chocolate cake, we will need 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of granulated sugar, and half a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder to give our cake that rich chocolate flavor. For our leavening agents, we'll use 1 teaspoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of baking soda. We also need half a teaspoon of salt to balance the sweetness. Now for the wet ingredients, we'll need half a cup of milk, a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, 2 large eggs, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract to add a touch of sweetness and aroma. Lastly, we need half a cup of boiling water. This will help the cocoa powder bloom and intensify the chocolate flavor. Remember, using fresh and quality ingredients is the key to making a delicious cake. With all our ingredients ready, it's time to start baking. Firstly, preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius, is crucial. This ensures a consistent temperature throughout the baking process, leading to an evenly baked cake. While the oven is warming up, let's prepare the cake pan. We'll grease it well to ensure our cake doesn't stick. A simple way is to use a bit of butter or non-stick spray, then lightly dust it with flour. This creates a barrier between the cake and the pan. With our oven heating up and our pan ready, we can move on to the next step. The key to a perfect cake lies in the perfect mix of dry ingredients. Yes, indeed, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. We've got our all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, unsweetened cocoa powder, baking soda, and salt all set to go. Now sifting might seem like a tedious step, but it's crucial for a light, airy cake. It not only removes any lumps but also helps to mix our ingredients evenly. So let's get sifting. Once everything is sifted, give it a good stir. This ensures our cake has a consistent flavor throughout, no surprise bites of baking soda or salt. It's the little things that make a big difference, right? So, there we have it, a perfectly sifted and mixed blend of dry ingredients. This is the foundation of our cake, the base upon which we'll build the rest of our flavors. Now that our dry ingredients are well mixed, let's move on to the wet ingredients. Now it's time to mix our wet ingredients together. We'll be working with milk, vegetable oil, a couple of large eggs, and a dash of vanilla extract. The key here is to whisk these ingredients together until they're perfectly combined. This might seem like a small step, but it's crucial for achieving that smooth, velvety batter we're aiming for. You might be wondering why we're mixing the wet and dry ingredients separately. The reason is simple. It helps us avoid overmixing. Overworked batter can lead to a dense and chewy cake, which is not what we want. By mixing the wet and dry ingredients separately, we ensure that they're both well combined before we mix them together. This results in a perfectly light and fluffy cake. With our wet ingredients ready, it's time to combine them with our dry ingredients. I can already tell this cake is going to be a delicious treat. Now comes the exciting part, mixing everything together. Let's start by gradually merging our 2 worlds of flavors. Take your bowl of wet ingredients and begin to pour it into the dry mix, bit by bit. Give it a good stir after each addition. This method ensures that everything gets incorporated evenly, leaving no lumps behind. As you stir, you'll notice the batter starting to take form. It's like watching a masterpiece in the making, where every stroke of the whisk brings us closer to our delicious goal. Remember, patience is key here. We don't want to rush this process. Once the wet and dry ingredients have become one, it's time to introduce a new element to the mix, the boiling water. Now this may seem a bit unusual. You might even think that it's a mistake, but trust me, it's not. The boiling water is actually our secret ingredient. It helps to bloom the cocoa powder, which intensifies the chocolate flavor in our cake. It also gives our cake that light, moist texture we all love. So let's go ahead and carefully pour the boiling water into the batter. As you stir in the water, you'll notice the batter becoming thinner. Don't panic. This is exactly what we want. It may seem too thin for a cake batter, but remember, it's this thin consistency that's going to give our cake its wonderfully tender crumb. Keep stirring until the batter is smooth. Take a moment to admire your work. It's a lovely sight, isn't it? All those ingredients coming together to create something special. With our batter ready, it's time to pour it into our prepared cake pan. Don't forget to smooth out the top with a spatula. We want our cake to bake evenly after all. And there you have it, we're one step closer to our delicious chocolate cake. Stay tuned for the next part where we'll be sliding our creation into the oven. Happy baking! Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, it's time to bake our cake. The batter we've prepared is smooth, glossy, and tempting, but resist the urge to taste. We're about to transform this liquid gold into a fluffy, chocolatey dream. First, let's pour our batter into the greased cake pan. Don't worry if it seems thin. Remember, it's supposed to be that way. This is one of the secrets to our cake's light and airy texture. Now, let's smooth it out. Use a spatula to evenly distribute the batter throughout the pan. This step ensures that our cake rises uniformly, creating a perfect canvas for frosting later on. Plus, it's oddly satisfying, isn't it? Smoothing out the batter, knowing that in a few moments it will be a decadent cake. Ah, the simple joys of baking. Once we're satisfied with our batter placement, it's time to pop our pan into the preheated oven. Gently slide the pan onto the middle rack, making sure it's centered. This is the sweet spot where the heat circulates most evenly. Now set your timer for 30 to 35 minutes. You might be tempted to peek, but remember, every time we open the oven door, we let out heat and disrupt the baking process. Patience, my dear friends, patience. Instead, let's rely on our trusty toothpick to tell us when our cake is done. Once the timer rings, carefully insert a toothpick into the center of the cake. If it comes out clean or with a few crumbs clinging to it, our cake is ready. If it's wet with batter, give it a few more minutes. And now, the hardest part, waiting for our cake to bake. But don't worry, it's worth every second. As the aroma of baking chocolate fills the kitchen, imagine sinking your teeth into a slice of this moist, delicious cake. Ah, sweet anticipation. Soon we'll be ready to move on to the final steps, cooling and frosting our masterpiece. After 30 to 35 minutes, our cake is ready to come out of the oven. Aromas of rich, warm chocolate waft through the air, filling the kitchen with an irresistible scent. The cake should be beautifully risen, with a slightly cracked surface indicating it's perfectly baked. But remember, it's piping hot at the moment, so handle with care. Now, the crucial part, cooling the cake. You might be tempted to dig right in, but patience, my friends. Good things come to those who wait. Let the cake rest in the pan for about 10 minutes. This allows it to cool down slightly, making it easier to handle and less likely to crumble when we remove it. This is the perfect time to set up a wire rack where the cake will cool completely. Once the 10 minutes are up, it's time to transfer the cake. Gently loosen the edges with a knife if needed and turn the cake out onto the wire rack. Careful now, we don't want our beautiful cake to crack. Ah, look at that, a perfectly baked chocolate cake. Now let's leave it to cool completely. This could take a while, but it's a necessary step to ensure that our frosting doesn't melt off. While we're waiting, let's prepare the frosting. You can choose any frosting that tickles your fancy. Today we're going with a creamy, dreamy chocolate ganache. Once the cake is completely cool, it's time to frost. Start from the center and work your way out, making sure every inch is covered with this luscious blanket of chocolatey goodness. And for those who prefer a simpler, less sweet option, a dusting of powdered sugar works wonders too. It gives our cake a snowy, elegant finish and adds just a hint of sweetness. And there you have it, a delicious basic chocolate cake ready in just 10 minutes. Enjoy!